Hello, I'm Carly Biondi. I'm with the Transnational NGO initiative at Syracuse University. Today I'm here with Barney Tallack, the former Director of Strategy at Oxfam and current INGO consultant. So during this interview, we just want to get a little bit more about your career and your advancement through the INGO world. My first question is, how did you start at Oxfam?
Okay, so I started as Oxfam as a volunteer, and I phoned up one day because I had 4 weeks spare and spoke to someone at the other end of the line to say, I'd like to volunteer, I've got this space. And they said to me, when can you start? And I said, when do you want me? And they said, after lunch. And 25 years later, I left Oxfam. And that really is probably the story, that I started as a volunteer. Very shortly, I was a staff member, and then I did many jobs within the organisation. But volunteering is the theme that goes through all of it.
For a young professional looking to get into NGOs, INGOs, what do you think are skill sets that are really valuable right now? So
it really depends on what sort of INGO you want to go into. So I often give a piece of advice to individuals, younger people, interns, graduates, undergraduates, around being really clear about what it is you want to achieve. So not necessarily what career do you want, but what do you want to achieve? What's your theory of change as a person for the world? So do you believe that the best way to change things is to be directly delivering humanitarian aid? Do you believe that actually global policy change is the thing that's going to transform people's lives? And start at that point and then work out what skills you might want to have, what sorts of organisations you might be interested in, and that would be your starting point before moving into, okay, so what are the skills I need to have in order to go into one of those organisations.
And so what does a first job look like for someone going into INGOs? Is it volunteering as your experience, or is it in the field first?
Yes, I think certainly 25 years ago, I mean, I know a lot of people of my generation, if you like, in the INGO world, and almost all of us started as volunteers in one form or another. It was a very different world then. I mean, INGOs weren't as fully formed, if you like, as they are now, and they certainly weren't as professional. They were perhaps more chaotic, and so chances to do things came up in slightly different ways. Now, of course, there is a range, obviously, of INGOs and civil society organisations that do very different things. So that idea of going into the field might be something that applies to a pure humanitarian response organisation. But if you want to be in a policy think tank, going into the field isn't necessarily the way in. You might want to volunteer to work on a research project that a particular policy think tank is engaging in. So I would say there's multiple routes, but come back to my earlier point, you've got to start with what's your theory of change as an individual. Are you more policy, political? Are you more direct service delivery? Are you more environmental end? Are you more sustainability end? And so on and so on. So you work out those different axes, and then that would help you work out where you would go in. But I think volunteering is a good place to start, even now.
Fair enough. As a leader in the INGO world, what do you consider the key factors for successfully running an INGO?
Okay, so many people probably think, it's about making sure the money comes in, etc., which is important. Focus on mission, absolutely focus on mission. Be clear what the role of your organisation is within the wider civil society, INGO, movement, however you want to describe it, because each organisation must have clarity about what its role is within and across the wider movement, so that it can work out where it should respond, how it should respond. So I think those are very clear and necessary elements of running an INGO. Real focus on culture. What is the culture we want to have in this organisation, and how do we want people to behave? What are the ways of working? And then you get into the more sort of structural elements, how do we ensure we have the money? How do we ensure we have the right people with the right skills in the right places? How do we ensure we are using knowledge and learning from the different parts of the system? How are we effectively mobilizing communities, and so on and so on? And including things like, have we got an IT system, and have we got an HR set of processes that work? But start with that mission, role, culture, know what it is you're trying to achieve. Sometimes talking about purpose and beliefs, be really clear about that stuff. And then if you are clear about that stuff, then you can be more strategic. Then you can work out operationally how you deliver your strategy. And then you have all those other components.
Okay. So beyond identifying what your personal theory of change is, what advice could you give students, maybe at Maxwell School, maybe at other schools?
Yeah, so there's often a surfeit of people coming in as interns they come in with 2 degrees in international development, but of course that's lovely and that's wonderful, but don't expect to be immediately working on big international development issues when you come into an organisation. So you're going to come in at a particular place, choosing the right sort of organisation, key number 1, then thinking about what sort of role you might want to end up in, but certainly you're not going to start straight away in that sort of role. So you've got these wonderful skills. I know lots and lots and lots of people with 2 degrees in international development who start as admin assistants, PAs. My first paid job was an admin assistant. So you come in that way, but what you've got to do then is look for the opportunities as they arise. And again, even if you're a staff person, volunteer within that context of being a staff person. Saying that, it is also important which part of an organisation you go into. So I happened to end up in the domestic side of Oxfam when I started, and it wasn't another till 10 years later that I sort of moved into the international side. Other people came in at the international side, and some people occasionally have come from the international side to the domestic side. But it is important. You've got to work out, do I want to be a fundraiser? Do I want to be a logistician? Do I want to be someone who writes policy? So that's important. Think about which bit you want to go into.
Okay, well, thank you so much.